These 5 guys are not a threat to the United States. They are a threat to the safety and security of Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton last year dismissing claims that the 5 men traded for Berghdal are a threat to the United States. As has been previously reported, some of the Taliban 5 have reconnected with terrorists since their release to Qatar. Now, negotiations between our nation and Qatar over the 5 men's security arrangements are ongoing. But if an agreement is not made by the end of this month, the Taliban 5's restrictions will expire and they'll be free to leave Qatar. For more on this story and other matters of concern, let's bring in Paul Vallely, retired Major General in the U.S. Army and currently the chairman of Stand Up America. Paul, it is great to have you here on Newsmax Prime.
Thank you, J.D. Glad to be back with you.
It is wonderful to have you. And Paul, if you had to put money on it, you imagine the Taliban 5 are going to be free to leave Qatar at the end of the month?
Well, let me paint the picture I see. I think the audience needs to understand the regional hub headquarters for the Taliban is in Doha, in Qatar. And so I'm sure the operatives there running that office have already made plans for these 5 to go somewhere. Now, they'll do it covertly, but I'm sure that they've had their assignments made, and they're going to go out and they're going to be back on the battlefield, and they're going to be part of the jihadi movement warfare against the United States and others. You can bet on that.
So in essence, we just sent them to one of their headquarter locations by putting them, quote, on probation in Qatar. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, we sort of put them in restorative leave here to exercise, probably sharpen up their skills a little bit for their next assignment. But you can bet they'll be back on that battlefield somewhere in the Middle East.
Well, let's talk about what's going on here in the United States. Paul, we've had conversations before here on Newsmax TV. You talked about the possibility of training camps for ISIS and other terror groups right here in the United States. Now, there's a startling letter posted online, purportedly from an ISIS member, which says there are 71 trained ISIS, quote, soldiers living in 15 states. How credible do you find this letter?
Well, I think it's probably very credible, and I think it was on our show, J.D., in our interview where we outlined that the FBI was tracking over 20-some training centers throughout the United States that have been around for several years. So the sites are not new, and of course they've been recruiting out of our prisons. They've been recruiting cells consistently, and they're training them. They have firepower demonstrations, for example. They have shooting ranges. And so they're sharpening their skills right here in the United States as we talk. And the ISIS cells that are being formed south of the border, as I understand, also are liaisoning with the cells within the United States.
General, speaking again about military action within the United States or military exercises, that's been a topic of concern. The Jade Helm military exercises scheduled to go on in Texas and really in several of the southwestern states. Should we be concerned about those types of domestic military drills?
Well, I think at this time we should. Matter of fact, I just released an article this morning that I wrote on Jade Helm. And when I was in special operations, we conducted what we call off-base operations in the United States. Airborne operations, practicing patrols, and so on and so forth. So this is not new to have the special ops community do this. But what concerns me, if any direction has gone to the Special Operations Command for whatever the mission or objectives are for this exercise, that's what we need to find out, because every exercise like Jade Helm, they have a mission. They have goals. They have objectives they want to accomplish on these training missions. And I would like to see that, because if there's anything directed towards control of the U.S. populations or anything to do with any kind of militant activity.
We will have to leave it there. Paul, thank you very much for your time. Newsmax Prime is coming back.